Hey there. So today I just wanted to make a video about what are the bare minimum things that you need to start screen printing as a hobby. I do it as a hobby. Maybe I make a little bit of money on the side, but for the most part it's just a hobby for me. So I'm going to go over some of the things that are just like the bare minimums. There's always the one person who got amazing results with other things than the things that I'm going to list. But for the most part, just the very basic things that you're going to need to screen print. I'm going to go over those. I'm going to talk about some of the pros and cons of upgrading or downgrading or just going as cheap as possible. And it's going to depend on what your goals are. If your goals are just to make a couple shirts for a family reunion or something like that, I'm going to just save you some time and some money right off the bat and just say, go to your local screen printer, tell them what you need, pay whatever it is that they want. If you need to do 10 shirts, they're probably going to charge you quite a bit. Just go out, pay it, move on. If you're thinking about making this like a little side hustle, that's awesome. I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that you're going to need to do, some of the things that you're going to need to purchase. And then at the end, I'll kind of talk about some of the things that maybe if you are really convinced that this is something that you really want to try, I'm going to give you some ideas of, hey, maybe you should spend a little bit money up front and then save some money in the long run. So I'm going to go over some of those things. Again, I'm going to tell you like what the things that I think are very necessary for just to screen print a couple designs. You're probably going to make some mistakes and you're going to have to do more than one or two coats of your emulsion. All those little things that you're going to need to do some screen printing as more than just I'm going to make this one shirt. Again, I just highly suggest that if you just want to make this one shirt for the company picnic or whatever it is, go out and have a small business in your local community print them for you. It's going to save you time and money in the long run. So anyway, hope that you get some useful tips out of this. I'm going to go over some things and hopefully you'll learn something or have some ideas. Anything that I talk about will be in the description of the video and hopefully you'll learn something. So thanks for coming and checking it out. All right, so the very first thing that you're going to need is some screens. This is the first set of screens that I bought. They're wood, they're cheap. I thought I was going to make some screens, but that was just absolutely not going to happen. So I bought some cheap screens. This is the one that I tried to make. It's okay, but I would never use this now that I actually have done some screen printing. You can see some cobwebs on it. This is one that I made, and it's fine if you don't ever want to actually have great results. So I would just highly suggest, if you're going to do some screen printing, buy some screens. This is the first set of screens that I bought. They're very thin. They're tight, but not super tight. They're cheap. I think that these things at the time in 2020, I think I got them for like 12 bucks a piece. I'll put this in the description, but I think that they're up to like $18 a piece now. Come in a two-piece set. And I would suggest just going with maybe 160 mesh, and you know, they're cheap and you get results that you would expect from a cheap. This is one of the things that I would suggest if you're going to be serious, go ahead and spend the extra $6 or $7 a screen, get some really good screens. You'll have great results, and I don't think in the long run that you'll be sorry. If you're just going to make one set of screens, see if you enjoy this as a hobby, this might be the way to go. The next thing that you're going to need is some emulsion. I just bought this off of Amazon, Ecotex AP Blue. I think I'm on my 4th or 5th gallon of this. Have had no problems with it. The first gallon that I bought, I think I had it for over a year, still worked great. I go through them probably a half a year now. There are other options out there. There's what's called a diazo, where you mix something into your emulsion, and that just doesn't last that long. If you're not doing it professionally and you're not making 100 screens a week, it's not worth going that route. I highly suggest just doing the pre-sensitized You don't have to put anything in this. You open up the bucket and you put emulsion on your screen, stick it in somewhere that's not too hot or not too cold. And this will last, like I said, I've had a bucket that lasted me over a year. So I would highly suggest this is just a fairly cheap. I think the gallon of this is like 80 bucks, but you can buy a pint size for like $37. So just depending on what your goals are, if you think that you're gonna do this, buy the gallon. It'll keep for over a year. This is the way to go. I know that there are a lot of people that swear by other emulsions, but I kind of go with if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This has worked great for me. I've never had any challenges with it going bad or anything like that. So really highly recommend this Ecotex AP Blue. It's a good emulsion, easy to coat screens with it. And like I said, it's durable and it lasts a long time. So highly suggest this. You are gonna need some emulsion of some sort. So pick up some emulsion, the link's down below. The next thing that you're gonna need is some, you can use degreaser. It's a little more expensive. A bottle of degreaser is 20 bucks or something like that. But the way to go is Dawn dish soap. You can get a bottle of Dawn dish soap for 4 bucks. Use Dawn dish soap to clean your screens. Even when your screens first arrive and they're brand new, you want to wash them. Dawn's a good, any dish soap will work. Dish soap's a good solution because it takes the grease out of things. So it'll get the grease off your screens, wash them with the Dawn dish soap, rinse them off really well. It will work. There are special chemicals, like I said, degreaser that you would want to use if you're going to do more than a few screens, but Dawn dish soap will work. It's effective, it's cheap. Takes a little bit, it's a little harder to wash out than actual degreaser, but Dawn dish soap, cheap, easy, effective, is the way to go. When you get brand new screens, make sure you degrease them. You always want to degrease because anytime that you touch the screen at all, it's going to get the grease from your fingers. The people that are packing the screens probably are touching the screens. You don't want that when you're doing your first coat of emulsion. You want to make sure that your screens are nice and degreased and clean so that the emulsion sticks to it. All right, the next thing that you're gonna need is a squeegee. The squeegee is how you push the ink through the screen. This is a squeegee that I bought. I think you can see it like that. It's got a rounded edge. You do not want the rounded edge. You want a nice sharp edge. So here's a really cheap, I think this one's 11 inches. A really cheap squeegee, again off of Amazon. This will do the trick. There's a million different high-tech, sharper, stronger, whatever it is. Again, when you're just getting started and you just want to have the bare minimum cheap thing, this squeegee works perfectly fine. I've done hundreds of shirts with a squeegee like this, and super effective. One of the things that you want to make sure that you do though is plan ahead a little bit. You want your squeegee to be about the size of your print. So you want your squeegee, if your print is 10 inches wide, you don't want to have a little tiny squeegee where you're doing several passes to cover the whole thing. And you don't want a 15-inch wide squeegee where you're spreading your ink all over. So you want to have a squeegee that is about, I usually just air an inch, 3/4 of an inch on each side. My squeegee's a little bit bigger than my print. I have a print here, a print that I've already done. This print is about what we're looking for, right? The print is this wide, my squeegee is this wide, just so that I'm covering the edges with my squeegee. I'm not doing 2 passes to cover it, but I'm also not using this gigantic squeegee, which is gonna get ink everywhere. You wanna try to make your squeegee be similar in size, just your squeegee should be slightly bigger than whatever print that you're trying to print. That'll make things go smoother. There's a lot of different types of squeegees. There's different thickness, different hardness, different flexibility. Those things will all come into play someday, but when you're just getting started, buy a cheap squeegee, something with sharp edges, and it'll do you just fine for the beginning when you're doing a one color print. You're not gonna have to worry about it at all. This cheap little squeegee, I've done thousands of prints with it, and I mean, you can tell it's done some different colors all over it. Nice, simple, easy, cheap method. All right, so the next thing that we want to look at is our ink. All right, this is just a simple black rapid cure ink. This is one of the first inks that I used. There's a lot of different types of ink. Really important when you're starting off, I really highly recommend using Plastisol ink. If you use a water-based ink, there's a lot of different things that make printing much more difficult. I highly suggest Plastisol ink. This rapid cure, I'll be honest, it's not my favorite ink to work with, but when you're just getting started, you want to do something that's cheap, something that's easy, and really important, until you upgrade your equipment, you're going to want something that's a low cure. This cures at 270 degrees, which means it's very low cure. A lot of Plastisols, you're looking at 330. So you want something low cure, just something that has good coverage. If you're printing on any color shirts, light color shirts, you can print black on this, you can print black on a gray shirt, a white shirt, all kinds of different shirts. I highly recommend just getting a rapid cure, something simple. I use a lot of FN ink, which is also a low cure. It's a much better ink, but this is a cheap method and low cure, which is really important. When you get into it a little bit, you'll realize why you want low cure, and I'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. But recommend something like this. This ink for a pint is $28, so really pretty reasonable. I don't recommend doing like acrylic speedball ink. Some people buy starter kits with that. It just doesn't give very good results, and acrylic offers its own set of little challenges as well. So this Plastisol, really easy to work with and pretty cheap option. The next thing you're going to need is an exposure unit. This is a pretty cheap option. This is something that I built with 2x4s and a UV light. I think I spent something like $80 on this. Pretty cheap. I think there's cheaper options, but this has really done well for me. I'm going to put a link down below. It's a kind of a pre-assembled exposure unit with I think it's a 20-watt UV bulb. I haven't used it myself, so I can't really vouch for it, but it's a really cheap option. You're definitely going to need something to cure your emulsion. So you do need some sort of exposure unit. This, like I said, I built it myself. It works great. There's directions and kind of a how-to in one of the videos down below, and you know, you can go either route. Some people use just a floodlight. There's a lot of different options, but I highly recommend using a UV light. It's going to give you quicker cure times, and I think it's going to give you more consistent cure times. So something that you should look at. I also have a video on cure times that I just recently published. So check it out. Exposure unit, really important. All right, the next thing you're going to need is some transparencies to print and expose your screens. So here's the print that I made. That's that screen that I showed earlier. This is how I make my screens. You can check out my video on burning screens, something really important. They're all over the internet. I'm sure that if you're at this point thinking about buying stuff, you've probably at least looked into it a little bit. Transparency paper, nothing too special about it. It's a little bit expensive for these 13 by 19 sheets. I think I pay about $70, something like that. You don't need these big ones. If you're gonna make just like a simple small, like if I was gonna do just this, I would use a 8.5 by 11 transparency paper, so you save a little bit of money there. And it's gonna depend on what your printer takes. If your printer takes 13-inch paper, which is what you'd wanna do when you get to the point where you're actually printing some production on t-shirts, you usually use like 11-inch wide prints. But transparency paper, again, I think that everything I'm going to talk about, I've got a video on my channel somewhere. One tip, just if you get to this point, if you wet your fingers, lick your fingers, wet your fingers, and you touch it, the side that sticks, that's the side that you're gonna print on. And you're gonna just print on this with a regular inkjet printer. You may already have one. When we get to the end of the video, I'll suggest the printer that I use, which has been just a workhorse. It's a great little printer and it's not too expensive. So transparency paper, really important. This is one of those things that I've seen people do. Wife has a Cricut and they cut out the design and they stick it on a transparency paper. That works too. There's a lot of different options for this. Some people that actually have artistic ability, unlike myself, will draw a design with a Sharpie and print off of that. I've never had any success with that and I can't draw. So highly suggest picking this up, printing out your designs on your transparency paper, and going from there. All right, so with those things that I've already mentioned, you can make a screen and print something on it. Again, I think that's the bare minimum of what you're gonna need. I've seen people get great results taking their screen, setting it down on a shirt, getting their squeegee and ink, pushing the ink through the screen, and get decent results just by doing that. I don't recommend that. There's a couple things that I would recommend that you would want to do before you get to the point where that's your only option. I have seen people get amazing results with no screen clamps, no screen press, nothing like that. Just a screen, some ink, and a squeegee. Got great results. I would recommend using a couple other things that I'm going to go over now, just so that it makes your life a little bit easier. When you get into this, you're going to realize that it's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it's also not as easy as people make it look on YouTube. People on YouTube go on there, they show you their amazing results, and you're like, wow, I can do that. But in reality, it's trial and error. It takes a lot of effort, and honestly, it's not as easy as it looks, and it's gonna take you a little while before you get it all down and you make great results. So with the things that I listed already, I think you can get started, but I'm gonna go over some things that will make your life just a little bit easier. So you might see people recommending getting a screen press right off the bat. That's fairly expensive and not really that necessary. Like I said earlier, you could just set your screen on the t-shirt and use your squeegee, and some people get great results with that. I never had a lot of use or a lot of success with that, but it is something that I've seen people do regularly. These are called screen clamps, and what these do is they kind of make it like impromptu screen press. So it's gonna hold your screens in position. You're gonna just put your t-shirt in where you want it. You're gonna use the screen clamps. You're gonna make your print. You're gonna take the t-shirt out. You're gonna get the next one in there, and you'll have repeatability with those screen clamps. I wouldn't suggest doing anything more than a single color print with just the screen clamps, but it is something that's going to make your life just a little bit easier. It's going to hold your screen in position, and it's just I think they're $10. I think they're $10, so definitely worth picking up. I would screw them into like a platen or a small board that's about the size of a t-shirt. Will make things a little bit easier, but screen clamps, I used them a couple times, mostly in my classroom. I used some screen clamps, but for the most part, yeah, it's just a quality of life, just to make things just slightly easier than throwing your screen on top of the t-shirt, and they're relatively cheap. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to recommend, I'm going to recommend it, but what I really mean to say is that I would say that this is one of the most important things when figuring out how to screen print. This is a scoop coater. This is how you coat your screens with emulsion. It's really, really important when you're trying to get consistency in printing that you use a scoop coater. I did not put it in the must-haves because I've also seen people use a squeegee, spread out their emulsion, but don't do that. I would highly recommend this. I honestly believe that this is the first step to getting serious, consistent, great results. If your screen, I see this on Reddit every week, probably 3 times a week. What's wrong with my burn? Why can't I see my image? Well, the reason is because you used a squeegee and your screen is a complete mess. There's no consistency. It's not an even thickness of emulsion, and it's just a complete mess. This scoop coater is going to make your life so much easier. Do you have to have it? I'm gonna lie to you and say no. But the answer is, for anyone who was serious in the least, this is the best $24 that you will ever spend. A scoop coater so that you can get even emulsion is going to be your best friend. Again, sort of like the squeegee, you want a scoop coater that is just a little bit, I don't know that you can see that, a little bit thinner than your screen. So my screen is 20 inches wide. The inside of it is about 18 inches. This scoop coater is, I think, 15 inches. So when I coat this screen, I'm gonna get emulsion almost from edge to edge. This is the screen that I have. Here's where the emulsion ends, and that's where the screen, where the edge of the screen frame is. So there's, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch there, 3/4 of an inch on this side. The emulsion covers almost the entire screen. And I don't know if you can see it, but my emulsion is a very consistent color from top to bottom. That's because I used a scoop coater, and it's the same, the emulsion is the same thickness from the top to the bottom. It's gonna make your life so much easier. I really think that this is basically a must-have. A scoop coater, if you get a smaller screen, some people like to start off with a little bit smaller screens. I do recommend that if you're gonna do like a full-size front t-shirt, here's a good example. All right, so this is an old print that I did. I don't know if you can see this, but this print is about 11 inches wide. So here's the outside edge, here's the inside edge. This print is about 11 inches wide, which is what you would want on the front of a adult size t-shirt. So you don't want your screen to be so small that you have no room over here. Because you want your squeegee to be a little bit wider, you definitely want to use, if you're going to do like 12 inch, 11 inch prints, you're going to want to start off with 20 by 24 screens. That's what I think that I linked down below. That's what my starter screens were, and that's what the screens that I typically use are. They're 24 inches tall and 20 inches wide. That gives me plenty of room. My emulsion comes almost to the side of the frame, and then I've got a little bit of room so that I'm not trying to squeeze my squeegee in when I'm printing this print. So my squeegee would be going this way. So this is about the right size squeegee for this print. It's got a little bit of play on this side, a little bit of play on this side. So when I print this thing, I don't have to worry about making 2 passes. So I don't want my screen, I don't want to get like a cheaper, smaller screen and be constrained on what size print I can use. So I would recommend getting a 20 by 24 right off the bat. Print with that. You'll enjoy having a little bit of freedom to move the print around. That's what I would go with as far as the scoop coater, screen size, and squeegee size. All right, the next thing that I would say is very close to a must-have is a heat gun. So this heat gun is going to be used to dry and cure your ink. Drying is not enough, you have to cure your ink. I showed you on my ink earlier that it cured at 270 degrees. So you're gonna wanna use your heat gun and cover the entire screen printed area, the entire print, and make sure that the ink gets up to 270 degrees all the way through. I usually get my prints up above 300 degrees just to make sure that it's fully cured. Heat gun is a usable device. It's not ideal, but when you're starting off, this is perfectly acceptable and something that will get you to where you want to be to make nice prints. Plastisol ink, again, you want to cure it. You want to make sure you get it to the recommended temperature, a little bit above the recommended temperature, so that you're sure that it prints and the print is going to stay in the shirt. If you don't cure your shirt, you can dry it and just kind of eyeball it and hope that it got warm enough. But when you wash it, the ink's going to start washing out, and you're going to want to make sure that you cure it. The second piece of that is just a simple temperature gauge. This thing is just point. I don't know if you can see the laser. Tells us how warm it is. It's 60 degrees in my shop right now. 60 degrees right now. So you're going to want to use the heat gun and then check it with your temperature gauge just to make sure that things are getting up to the recommended temperature. I've had pretty good luck with this just kind of cheap temperature gun. I've seen people on Reddit complaining that they thought that their gun said it got up to 275 degrees, but it wasn't. This is not the most reliable thing in the world, and that's why I always go a little bit over when I'm curing, so I'll get my temperatures up to 300. I figure this gun is pretty close. I actually have two of these, and I check them against each other. They're two different brands. And one of them, this one runs like 3 degrees hotter than the other one. So I figure if I'm using two devices and they get close, I should be good to go. But again, just to make sure that I take any worry out, I go a little bit above the recommended temperature. Okay, so then first thing that I'm gonna recommend that you make a decision on how much money do you wanna spend. Are you going to try to go as cheap as possible the first few times, figure out if you like it? There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly acceptable. I've gone through all of the stages of, let me just spend as little money as possible. Do I really want to try this? The answer is yes. And if I had just kind of spent a little bit money in the beginning, I would have saved myself some money in the long run. I don't think that I've wasted a ton of money, but one of the things that I would highly recommend is spending a little bit of extra money on your screens. So this, as I said earlier, these are the screens that I first bought. Used them a couple times before I upgraded. There's nothing wrong with these for a 1-color print, but when you start getting into 2-color prints and you're tightening up your registration, you really want the tightest screens possible. This screen is not super tight. I don't know if you can see it, but the screen kind of bulges a little bit when I flick it. Doesn't really make that really like drum type sound where it's reverberating. A brand new, really good screen is gonna be super tight, and you're gonna hear it when you flick it. Here's a different pre-stretched screen that I have. Super tight. When I push on it, I cannot push like a bulge into it. They're just very tight. They'll give you better registration, give you cleaner prints, and it's easier to put emulsion on these really tight screens. Really recommend upgrading those to the Gold Up USA screens. And they're not that much more expensive. On Amazon, you can get a 6-pack of the pre-stretched screens from Gold Up USA for about $170. So less than $30. These ones I think were 15 or 16 bucks a piece. So you're paying a little bit more for those, but in the long run, I think that if you're gonna do multicolor prints, you wanna go ahead and upgrade your screens a little bit, get some really decent Gold Up screens, and you'll kind of figure out what you need as far as mesh count and stuff like that. But I'm just recommending that maybe if you want to take this seriously, go ahead and get the more expensive screens. All right, so one of the things that you're gonna find is that there's really no limit to the amount of things that you're gonna want to buy to make your life easier. So I'm just gonna throw a couple things out there. A spatula to spread your ink on your screens and to get the ink off of your screens, and a straight spatula. These come in a 2 set. The straight spatula is really good for mixing up your ink. when you start printing, you'll realize that you want to mix up your ink before you print. So cheap little quality of life upgrade thing together. These things are like $9. Really make things easier as far as working with your ink. Yes, you can use a popsicle stick or I don't know, like a spoon or something like that. But just to get some spatulas for pretty cheap is a good idea. Tape, when, I don't know if you noticed earlier when, this is not the same tape, but this is just blue painter's tape. Really good option, very cheap, can pick it up anywhere. I use 2-inch just because it makes it a little bit easier. There's some a little bit slicker tape that screen printers use. I picked this up just at a garage sale or something. I usually use the blue painter's tape, but you're gonna want some tape just to limit the amount of ink that you get everywhere when you're screen printing. One of the things that you're gonna find out early on is that screen printing can be a mess. You really wanna make sure that you're limiting the mess as much as possible. I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody. I should say I like to make a gigantic mess when I'm screen printing, and the more tape that you use, the easier your cleanup, and the mess making is gonna be limited a little bit. A little bit of spray tack. This is something that when you get some platens, you'll want to spray on the platen. It'll make your shirt stick to the table that you're working on or the platen that you're working on, so that when you pick up your screen, it won't pick up the shirt. If it picks up the shirt, you're not gonna be able to make a second pass with the ink. The more that your shirt stays where it's supposed to, the easier it is to work with. You can make more than one pass when you're putting ink on a shirt. Again, just a simple thing. And the next thing is a press wash. This is really important for getting the ink off of your screens. So after you've printed a shirt, you want to clean your screen so that you can reclaim it. And I showed you the emulsion remover earlier, but before you get to that point, you want to take all of the ink or as much of the ink out of the screen as possible. So you're going to want to use a press wash to clean the screen and clean the ink. It'll just help clean the ink up. All right, so those are the things that you'll at least get started. A lot of things that you need, a lot of things that you probably should just go ahead and go for. But I'm going to recommend just a couple things that if you think that you're going to do this and you think that you're going to make a side hustle of this, and you don't want to go as cheap as possible and you want to kind of make life just a little bit easier, I'm going to make just a couple suggestions. The first one is a flash dryer. A flash dryer is not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's something that will make your life easier. It'll eliminate the need for a heat gun, and it'll kind of open up some possibilities to do some 2-color prints, to do some flash print, and that will make your prints just in the long run, or even in the short run, come out much easier. I have the old Vivor from Amazon. I've taken it apart now because I've upgraded mine, but this was like $175, something like that. And just really is just like a real time saver. You can cure your shirts with it, and you just leave your shirts under the flash dryer for a little bit, and that will allow you to cure your shirts, flash print, do multicolor prints by just drying the first color and then printing a second color. Those are things that just kind of open up the possibilities a little bit. Flash dryer, yes, it's a little bit expensive. It's a kind of the next step that you'll want to take, but is really helpful in the process of doing some really cool screen prints. All right, and maybe one more thing that you might want to pick up is a Canon printer. It's a wide format printer. It'll print 13-inch wide transparencies. The one that I use is the Canon IX6820, I think it is, 6820. And it's been a great printer for me. I've used it for 4 years. I have really had zero problems with it. I've not upgraded the ink. I've gotten just cheap ink and it's worked really well for me. It prints great, really dark transparencies. It's something that a lot of screen printers recommended this printer, and I kind of thought, well, I don't know if it can be as good as it's cracked up to be, and it really has. That printer has really been a workhorse for me. Makes the process really easy. I haven't had any real challenges. Knock on wood, haven't had any problems with the printer. It's probably been my most reliable printer ever. Really enjoy it. It's good. It's got a wide format, and it's a good printer to go with. I bought it at the height of COVID, and I think it cost me like $450, but they're down to $175, $180 right now. Really recommend picking one up. Prints great transparencies, and something that's going to be very useful in your process. All right, and the next thing I would say is you might want to go ahead and spend a little bit of money on an actual printing press. The first thing, when you start exploring this, if you're looking at Reddit or whatever, everyone talks about the dreaded blue press from Amazon. I personally loved it. Yes, you don't get great registration. Yeah, it's hard to do multicolor prints, but if you're gonna make single color prints, it just makes things just a little bit easier, and it's like $55 for the one color, one station print press. It'll make it easier for you to line up your shirts. It'll make it easier for you to have some off contact when you're making a print. I highly recommend it. I started with the one color. I upgraded it to the 4 color and probably printed maybe like 3 or 4 multicolor shirts, and I think I probably maxed out at 3 colors. It's not a great press. It's cheap for a reason. It's garbage, but it's better than nothing, and it's better than using the little screen print clamps. I like the screen clamps. They're fine. I used it in my classroom and had some of my students print with it, and they enjoyed it. But if you're gonna have any possibilities of doing something like a multicolor print, or even just do I don't know, like a 30 shirt production run, it's going to be so much easier if you have the cheap blue press. All of that being said, if you decide that you think that you really want this to happen and you want to do an actual side hustle, I would highly suggest that you look at Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist. I kind of live in a rural area, so I don't have a lot of people really close to me, but I picked up my M&R Cruiser, which you can see back there. My M&R Cruiser, which is a great press. I really love it, for $1,500. And yeah, that's a huge investment, but it's probably made me 5 times that amount of money in the 4 years that I've had it, and I'm not even looking for work. So it's just something that if you want to get serious, spend as much money as you can comfortably spend, because in the long run, if you're really serious about doing this, you're going to spend the money at some point anyway. Maybe you should leave the blue presses. Like I said, I bought 2 blue presses. I sent one of them across the country. Some guy on Reddit was looking for a press and didn't have one. I sent it across the country. It ended up costing me more to ship it than it did to buy it in the first place. But, you know, somebody wanted it and I wasn't using it, so I sent it. And then I gave a second one away on Craigslist. So, you know, there's deals out there. If you're patient, you're going to find some great deals. If you're not so patient, you're going to still find some good deals. Facebook Marketplace is a great place to look for used screens. I think everywhere in my area, I can find thousands of $5 used screens. It's a really good deal if you don't mind going through that process of dealing with people and them not trusting you, whatever. Facebook Marketplace is a great place to upgrade your equipment. It's a great place to look for things that maybe you don't know that you want or need. And I suggest that go out, spend a little bit of extra money up front so that you're not spending $100 today and then tomorrow you decide you want to spend $1,500 and then wish you hadn't spent the $100 on the blue press. So anyway, I hope that this video helps you. It's really a really cool process. Screen printing has really been something that I've really enjoyed. Anyway, happy printing. I hope that this video has helped you out, and have a great day.